The crystalline spires of Asteria gleamed under the light of 3 moons, their surfaces refracting countless colors across the alien cityscape. Dr. Sophia Reeves stepped off the transport, her heart racing with equal parts excitement and apprehension. At 32, she was Earth's leading expert in xenogenetics, but nothing in her studies had prepared her for the sight before her. The Asterians were a marvel of evolution, tall, elegant beings with iridescent skin that shifted colors with their emotions. Most stood between 7 and 8 feet tall, their movements graceful despite their height. But it was Dr. Thuranel who caught Sophia's attention immediately. At 12 feet tall, Thura towered over her own people, her skin a deeper shade of opal than the others. She stood apart from the welcoming committee, her expression carefully neutral as she observed the human scientist's arrival. The other Asterians kept a noticeable distance from her, their skin flickering with what Sophia recognized as discomfort. Dr. Reeves, Thura's voice was melodious but reserved. "Welcome to the Institute of Genetic Preservation." She moved forward with surprising grace, extending a hand in the human gesture of greeting she had obviously studied. Sophia took the offered hand, noting how her own barely spanned Thura's palm. "The pleasure is mine, Dr. Nell. Your research on genetic diversity in crystalline-based life forms is groundbreaking." A ripple of surprise colored Thura's skin with patches of gold. Few bothered to read her research anymore, not since she had been labeled as genetically divergent. The Asterian civilization was facing a crisis. Their population's genetic diversity was declining rapidly, leading to widespread reproductive failure. Traditional solutions had failed, and now they had turned to Earth for help, though many did so reluctantly. As they walked through the Institute's corridors, Sophia noticed the whispers and stares that followed them. "They're not subtle, are they?" she commented quietly. "My height is considered a mutation," Thura explained, her skin darkening slightly. "In a society struggling with genetic stability, any deviation is seen as a threat. They believe my presence in this research could taint the results." Sophia frowned. "That's remarkably short-sighted for an advanced civilization. Often, genetic variations that seem problematic can hold unexpected advantages. That's partly why I requested to work with you specifically." Thura stopped abruptly, her skin flickering with patterns Sophia hadn't seen before. "You requested me?" "Of course. Your understanding of Asterian genetics is unparalleled, and your unique perspective could be exactly what we need to solve this crisis. Sometimes it takes an outsider to see the solution." For the first time, a genuine smile curved Thura's lips. "You're rather unique yourself, Dr. Reeves. Most humans I've met were too intimidated to even maintain eye contact. Please, call me Sophia. And trust me, after years of being the youngest department head at MIT and constantly having to prove myself, I've learned that size has nothing to do with capability." Their shared laboratory was a marvel of both human and Asterian technology. Holographic displays showed complex genetic sequences, while crystalline computers processed data at incredible speeds. As they began their work, Sophia noticed how Thura's movements became more confident, more natural, when focused on her research. "Your genetic structure is fascinating," Sophia remarked, studying a three-dimensional model of Thura's DNA. "The crystalline components aren't just present in your physical appearance, they're integrated into your genetic code in a way I've never seen before. That's what makes our current crisis so complex," Thura explained, manipulating the hologram to highlight specific sequences. "Our genetics aren't just about biological reproduction, they're about maintaining the crystalline harmony that keeps us alive. As our population's genetic diversity decreases, that harmony is failing." As they worked through the day, Sophia began to see patterns emerging, patterns that others might have missed because they were too focused on conformity rather than adaptation. Thura's mutation wasn't a flaw, it was potentially an evolutionary response to their species' crisis. "Look at this," Sophia said excitedly, highlighting a particular sequence. "Your crystalline structures are more complex, more adaptable." What if the very thing they're afraid of is actually the solution they've been looking for? Thara's skin rippled with hopeful colors, but her expression remained guarded. They would never accept that. My existence is seen as a warning, not a possibility. Then we'll have to prove it to them, Sophia replied firmly. Science isn't about accepting the status quo, it's about discovering the truth, wherever it leads us. Are you willing to challenge their assumptions? Thara studied her for a long moment, her skin shifting through various patterns before settling on a determined bright blue. With you as my research partner? Yes, I believe I am. As the 3 moons rose over Asteria, casting their mixed light through the laboratory's crystal walls, the 2 scientists began mapping out their research plan. They were an unusual pair, the tall, crystalline alien and the determined human, but perhaps that was exactly what was needed to save a civilization from its own rigid thinking. Neither of them could have predicted how their partnership would not only challenge scientific assumptions but also break down barriers of prejudice and fear, leading both their species toward a future neither had imagined possible. 1 month into their research, Sophia and Thara had developed a rhythm that transcended their physical differences. The laboratory had become their sanctuary, a place where height and species meant nothing compared to the pursuit of knowledge. But their progress was about to face its first major challenge. The Genetic Council requests your presence, announced Director Venn, his crystalline form shimmering with barely concealed disapproval as he entered their lab. Both of you. Thara's skin darkened to a deep indigo, worry, Sophia had learned. The Genetic Council was Asteria's highest scientific authority, composed of traditionalists who had initially opposed bringing in human assistance. When? Sophia asked, straightening her lab coat. Now, Venn replied curtly. The council chamber was a vast amphitheater, its walls embedded with living crystals that pulsed with light. 12 council members sat in elevated positions, their heights carefully standardized to maintain their idea of genetic perfection. Sophia felt their dismissive gazes as she and Thara took their places at the center. We have reviewed your preliminary findings, began High Counselor Zar, his tone glacial. Your approach is unconventional. Unconventional doesn't mean incorrect, Sophia responded firmly. Our research shows that Dr. Nell's genetic variations might hold the key to stabilizing your population's declining fertility. By suggesting we should embrace mutation, another counselor scoffed, her skin flashing angry red. This is precisely why involving aliens in our matters was ill-advised. Thara stepped forward, her full height making several counselors shift uncomfortably. With respect, the data speaks for itself. The crystalline matrices in my genetic code show increased stability and adaptability. If we could understand how. You were invited here as a subject of study, Zar interrupted, not as a researcher. Sophia felt anger surge through her. Dr. Nell is my equal partner in this research. Her insights have been invaluable, and if you dismiss them because of prejudice, you're only hurting your own people. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Thara's skin rippled with surprise at Sophia's defense, while the counselor's colors shifted through various shades of outrage. You forget your place, Dr. Reeves, Zar warned. We allowed this research as a courtesy to Earth's scientific community, not as an invitation to upend our society's foundations. Science isn't about maintaining foundations, Sophia countered. It's about building better ones when the old ones fail. And your foundations are failing. Your population's fertility rates have dropped 60% in 3 generations. In 10 more years, they'll be critical. She gestured to the holographic data floating between them. Look at these patterns. The very variations you've been trying to eliminate might be nature's way of saving your species. Dr. Nell isn't a mistake, she's evolution in action. The silence that followed was deafening. Thara stood motionless, her skin cycling through emotions too complex for Sophia to read. Finally, a younger counselor leaned forward, her expression thoughtful. Explain the crystalline matrix theory, she requested. For the next hour, Sophia and Thera presented their findings. They showed how Thera's unique genetic structure could potentially stabilize the deteriorating crystalline patterns in the general population. Their research suggested that instead of representing genetic decay, her variations might be an evolutionary adaptation to strengthen their species. "We're not suggesting immediate implementation," Thera explained, her confidence growing as she spoke. "But we need authorization to expand our research. To explore these possibilities fully." The council withdrew for deliberation, leaving Sophia and Thera in tense anticipation. In the empty chamber, Thera turned to her human partner. "No one has ever defended me like that," she said softly. Sophia smiled. "Well, they've never had to face a stubborn human scientist before. We're notorious for not knowing when to back down. Is that why you're not afraid of me? Because you're stubborn? I'm not afraid of you because there's nothing to fear. Your difference isn't a flaw, Thera. It's a gift. One that your people need, even if they don't realize it yet." The council's return interrupted their conversation. High Counselor Czar's expression was stern, but resigned. "You may continue your research," he announced. "But under strict supervision. Any deviation from approved protocols will result in immediate termination of the project." As they left the chamber, Sophia noticed Thera's skin glowing with a new color, a warm, golden hue she'd never seen before. "What does that color mean?" she asked curiously. Thera looked down at her, and for the first time, her smile reached her eyes. "Hope," she answered. "It means hope." Back in their laboratory, they began planning the next phase of their research. But both knew that their victory in the council chamber was just the beginning. They had won the right to continue, but proving their theory, and changing centuries of prejudice, would be a far greater challenge. "They'll be watching us closely now," Thera observed, reviewing their research parameters. Sophia nodded, already adjusting their testing protocols. "Then we'll have to be perfect. Every test, every result, every conclusion has to be irrefutable." As they worked late into the night, the three moons casting shifting shadows through the crystal walls, neither spoke of the growing warmth between them, a connection that transcended their differences and defied their society's expectations. They had a civilization to save, and personal feelings would have to wait. But in quiet moments, when their hands brushed while sharing data tablets or their eyes met across the laboratory, both felt the undeniable pull of something deeper than their scientific partnership, something that might prove as revolutionary as their research. The discovery came at midnight, under the glow of Asteria's 3 moons. Sophia sat bolt upright in her chair, staring at the holographic display with wide eyes. The genetic simulation she'd been running for weeks had finally yielded results that made her heart race. "Thera," she called out, knowing her research partner was still in the lab despite the late hour. "You need to see this." The tall Asterian moved gracefully across the laboratory, her crystalline skin catching the moonlight. She leaned down over Sophia's shoulder, close enough that Sophia could feel the subtle warmth radiating from her form. "Look at the crystalline matrix," Sophia pointed excitedly. "Your genetic variation isn't just stable, it's adaptive. When introduced to standard Asterian DNA, it doesn't override the existing patterns. It strengthens them." Thera's skin rippled with colors of excitement and disbelief. "That's impossible. The Council's research showed that genetic variations always led to destabilization." "The Council's research was flawed," Sophia explained, expanding the holographic model. "They were looking for ways to suppress variations, not enhance them. But your genes, they're like a bridge, Thera. A perfect bridge between what your species was and what it needs to become." As they analyzed the data together, the implications became clear. Thera's unique genetic structure could potentially restore fertility to the Asterian population while introducing greater resilience into their crystalline matrices. It wasn't just a cure, it was an evolution. "We need to run more tests," Thera said, her voice trembling slightly. If we're right about this. When we're right about this, Sophia corrected firmly, reaching up to touch Thera's arm. The contact sent a subtle spark through both of them, and Thera's skin flickered with colors Sophia had learned to recognize but tried not to think about too deeply. Their moment of triumph was interrupted by a sharp alert from the security system. Someone was attempting to access their research database remotely. Sophia's fingers flew across the control panel, tracing the intrusion. "It's coming from within the Institute," she growled, implementing emergency protocols. "Someone's trying to steal our data." Thera's skin darkened to stormy colors. "The purists. They've been gaining influence in the Council. They believe any genetic variation is a threat to our species' purity. Well, they're about to learn that humans are very good at protecting what's important to us." Sophia activated additional security measures she'd installed weeks ago, anticipating opposition. "Help me transfer everything to the secure servers." They worked frantically, backing up their research as multiple breach attempts hammered their firewalls. Just as they finished the transfer, the laboratory door slid open. 5 Asterians entered, their skin gleaming with aggressive red patterns. Their leader, Sophia recognized with a shock, was Director Venn. "Step away from the consoles," Venn ordered, his voice cold. "This research ends now." Thera moved protectively in front of Sophia, her full height making the other Asterians hesitate. "Our research could save our people. Our people need purity, not corruption," Venn spat. "The Council may be blinded by desperation, but we see the truth. Your mutations are a disease, and bringing this human here has only spread the contamination." "The only disease I see is ignorance," Sophia said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. She pressed a hidden control on her console, triggering an emergency signal to Earth's scientific outpost. "Your genetic purity is killing your species. We found a way to save it, and you want to destroy that because you're afraid of change?" "Afraid?" Venn laughed harshly. "We are protecting our civilization's future. Guards, seize their research. All of it is to be destroyed." The guards moved forward, but Thera stood her ground. Her skin blazed with colors so bright they illuminated the entire lab. "I have spent my life being told I was wrong, broken, unworthy. But Sophia showed me the truth. My difference isn't a flaw, it's hope. I won't let you destroy that hope." One of the guards reached for Sophia, but Thera moved with surprising speed. She swept Sophia behind her and used her size to block the guard's access to the main console. The crystalline walls of the laboratory began to resonate with the emotional energy radiating from her skin, creating a haunting harmonic that made everyone pause. "Don't you see?" Sophia pleaded, addressing not just Venn but all the guards. "This is exactly what your species needs. The ability to adapt, to become stronger through diversity. Thera isn't a mutation, she's the next step in your evolution." The laboratory doors slid open again, this time admitting a team of security officers led by the younger council member who had supported their research. "Director Venn," she announced, her voice ringing with authority, "you and your followers are hereby detained for attempted sabotage of sanctioned research." As the purists were led away, Sophia felt her knees go weak with relief. Thera caught her gently, those long fingers steadying her with surprising tenderness. "Are you all right?" Thera asked softly, her skin still flickering with protective colors. Sophia looked up at her, suddenly very aware of their proximity. "I'm fine. I couldn't let them destroy everything we've worked for. Everything you are." Thera's skin shifted to that warm golden color that Sophia now knew meant more than just hope. "You've given me more than research, Sophia. You've given me purpose. A reason to believe that being different isn't just acceptable, it's vital." As emergency teams secured the laboratory and began analyzing the attempted breach, Sophia and Thera remained close, both knowing that while they had won this battle, the war for acceptance was far from over. But they had proof now, proof that could change everything. And they had each other, a partnership that defied expectations and, perhaps, was growing into something neither of them had dared to hope for. In the days following the attempted sabotage, the Institute of Genetic Preservation transformed. Enhanced security teams patrolled the corridors, and their laboratory now required the highest level of clearance. But the biggest change was in how others looked at Thera, no longer with disdain, but with cautious curiosity. Sophia worked tirelessly, expanding on their breakthrough. The holographic displays showed an intricate dance of genetic codes, crystalline patterns merging and strengthening each other in ways that defied conventional Asterian science. The results are consistent across all test groups, Sophia announced, presenting their findings to an emergency session of the Genetic Council. Dr. Nell's genetic structure doesn't just restore reproductive compatibility, it enhances it. The crystalline matrices show a 40% increase in stability. The council chamber, once filled with skepticism, now hummed with excitement. High Counselor Czar, who had opposed them so strongly, leaned forward with undisguised interest. And the potential risks, he asked, his tone notably softer than in previous sessions. Thera stepped forward, her tall form commanding attention. We've run over 10,000 simulations. The genetic adaptations are stable and hereditary. Our children, the next generation of Asterians, will be stronger, more adaptable, while maintaining our essential nature. Sophia noticed how Thera's skin shimmered with pride as she spoke of future generations. It was a far cry from the self-doubt she'd shown when they first met. There's more, Sophia added, bringing up new data. The enhanced crystalline matrices show improved resistance to environmental stressors. This could help your species adapt to colonizing new worlds, expanding beyond Asteria. The implications weren't lost on anyone. The Asterians had long dreamed of expanding to other planets, but their delicate crystalline biology had made it impossible. Now, that dream seemed within reach. Later, as they walked through the Institute's crystal gardens, Sophia and Thera found a moment of peace. The three moons cast overlapping shadows through the transparent flowers, creating patterns that mirrored the complexity of their genetic research. I received a message from the genetic registry, Thera said quietly. They've officially reclassified my status. I'm no longer listed as a genetic divergent. I'm now classified as an evolutionary advancement. Sophia smiled, reaching out to touch Thera's hand. They're finally seeing what I saw from the beginning. You're not just different, you're extraordinary. Thera's skin rippled with those warm, golden colors that had become more frequent lately. You taught me to see myself differently, Sophia. To stand tall not just in height, but in spirit. Well, I had to look up to you somehow, Sophia quipped, earning a melodious laugh from her partner. Their moment was interrupted by an urgent message. The first real-world application of their research, the treatment of an infertile Asterian couple, had been successful. The woman's crystalline matrix had stabilized, showing the same enhanced patterns they'd observed in their trials. They rushed to the medical wing, where they found the couple embracing, their skin shimmering with joy. The woman looked up at Thera with tears in her eyes, a rare show of emotion for an Asterian. Thank you, she whispered. They told us we would never have children. That our genetic patterns were too degraded. But now. Thera knelt beside them, her own skin glowing with emotion. Now you have hope. And soon, you'll have more than that. The news spread quickly through the Institute and beyond. More couples came forward, seeking treatment. Each success strengthened their position, and with each passing day, the opposition to their work faded. In their laboratory, late one night, Sophia found herself studying Thera as she worked. The Asterian moved with a grace that belied her size, her skin occasionally flickering with colors that Sophia had learned to read like a book. You're staring, Thera observed, without looking up from her work. I'm observing, Sophia corrected. It's what scientists do. Thera turned to face her, those luminous eyes holding something deeper than professional interest. And what does your observation tell you? That sometimes the most beautiful discoveries aren't in our data or our research. They're in realizing that what others see as impossible is just the beginning of something extraordinary. The air between them charged with unspoken feelings, as tangible as the crystalline energy that powered their laboratory. Thera's skin rippled with colors Sophia had never seen before, deep, rich hues that spoke of emotions beyond scientific classification. Sophia, Thera began, her voice soft. On Asteria, we have a saying, the truest crystals grow not in darkness or light, but in the space between. I never understood what that meant until I met you. Sophia stepped closer, her heart racing. And what does it mean? It means that sometimes we find our greatest strength in the connections we never expected to make. In the spaces between what we are and what we could be. Their work had saved a civilization, but in that moment, both realized they had found something even more precious, a connection that transcended species, height, and all the barriers their societies had built. The 3 moons of Asteria cast their light through the crystal walls, creating a symphony of colors that matched the emotions playing across Thera's skin. They stood together, human and Asterian, scientist and outcast turned savior, proof that the greatest discoveries often come not from looking down through a microscope, but from looking up and seeing the possibility of something more. 1 year after their breakthrough, Sophia stood at the grand observatory of the Institute, watching Asteria's 3 moons rise over a changed world. The crystalline spires of the city below pulsed with new energy, their light reflecting the vitality of a civilization reborn. The door slid open behind her, and Thera's familiar presence filled the room. The final reports are in, she said, her skin glowing with joy. The fertility rate has increased by 200% across all treated populations. The Council has officially declared the genetic crisis over. Sophia turned to face her partner, still struck by how Thera's height now seemed as natural to her as breathing. And the enhanced traits? Stable and spreading naturally through the population. Already, we're seeing children born with improved crystalline matrices. The evolutionary leap we predicted is happening even faster than we anticipated. Their success had transformed Asterian society. The rigid height standards that had once defined genetic perfection were being abandoned. Throughout the city, Asterians of varying heights now moved freely, their skin shimmering with newfound confidence. The Earth Science Council sent their response, Sophia said, pulling up a holographic message. They're amazed by our results. They want to establish a permanent genetic research exchange program. Thera moved closer, her skin flickering with those warm colors that Sophia had come to cherish. And what did you tell them? I told them I needed to consult with my partner first. Sophia looked up at Thera. They're offering us the chance to lead the program. To continue our research together, officially representing both our species. The air between them charged with possibility. Their relationship had grown over the past year, defying both physical limitations and societal expectations. What had begun as a professional partnership had blossomed into something neither of them had expected to find across the vast distances of space. The Council has asked me to head the new Department of Evolutionary Genetics, Thera said softly. They want to ensure that future generations of Asterians embrace genetic diversity rather than fear it. She paused, her skin rippling with nervous colors. I told them my acceptance depends on having the right research partner. Sophia felt her heart skip. And who might that be? Someone who taught me that being different isn't a flaw, it's an advantage. Someone who looked at a 12-foot alien and saw not a mutation, but a miracle of evolution. Thera's skin blazed with those deep, rich colors that only Sophia could invoke. Someone who showed me that love, like science, knows no boundaries. The word hung between them, finally spoken after months of unspoken understanding. Sophia reached up, and Thera met her halfway, their hands intertwining in a gesture that bridged worlds. The humans have a saying, Sophia said, her voice thick with emotion. The best scientific discoveries are the ones that open new doors. I never expected one of those doors to lead to you. Then perhaps we should see what other doors we can open together, Thera replied. She reached into a pocket and withdrew a small crystal, its structure unique and complex. On Asteria, we have a tradition. When we find someone who completes our crystalline harmony, we create a resonance stone. It grows and changes with the relationship, becoming more complex and beautiful over time. The crystal pulsed with living light as she placed it in Sophia's palm. This one started growing the day we met. I've never seen one form patterns like this before. Sophia stared at the crystal, watching as it responded to her touch with swirls of color that matched Thera's skin. It's beautiful. Like us, it's something entirely new. Something that shouldn't have been possible, but is all the more precious because of it. Outside, the three moons aligned in a rare configuration, bathing the city in multiplicative light. In the streets below, Asterians of all heights celebrated their species' rebirth. The old prejudices were falling away, replaced by a new understanding that difference wasn't just to be tolerated, it was to be celebrated. So, Thera said, looking down at their joined hands, where the crystal pulsed in harmony with both their heartbeats. Shall we show the universe what humans and Asterians can achieve together? Sophia smiled, squeezing Thera's hand. Together. That's the only way I want to discover anything from now on. The crystal flared brightly, its light mixing with the glow of Thera's skin to create colors that had no name in either of their languages. As they stood together in the observatory, their silhouettes cast a single shadow, one tall, one small, but perfectly matched. Below them, the first generation of new Asterian children played in the crystal gardens, their varied heights and enhanced matrices a living testament to the power of embracing change. And above, the stars beckoned with possibilities that neither species could have imagined alone. They had set out to save a civilization and had ended up transforming too. Their love, like their research, had defied conventional wisdom and opened new pathways to the future. In the end, it wasn't just about genetics or evolution or even saving a species. It was about proving that the greatest breakthroughs happen when we have the courage to look past our differences and see the potential that lies beyond. As the crystal pulsed between them, Sophia and Thera stood at the threshold of their next great adventure, ready to show the galaxy that love, like science, knows no bounds. The future stretched before them, as vast and bright as the star-filled sky, full of discoveries waiting to be made, together.